Journey of a Critical Reader. The Reader Response Theory. One of the most difficult stories that I read this semester was Hills Like White Elephants. I found it hard to know what the message was unless you understood what the elephant in the room was. Using my skills that I learned from the Reader Response Theory, I was able to fully comprehend the story and what the author was trying to get across. Not only did this better my understanding, but I actually enjoyed the story even more because I knew what it was truly about. Observing myself as a critical reader. As a critical reader, I have found stories more interesting because I actually understand them. When I read the story of Raby, I noticed that the title was foreign and didn't see the importance of it until after I looked up the meaning of the word. Once I knew that the word Araby was a romantic term for the Middle East, I applied my new known knowledge to the story. She asked me, was I going to Araby? This was the first time Araby was mentioned in the story. I understood why the author named the place after a word that means romantic, because the main purpose for the boy going to Araby is for romance. Another way I bettered my reading as a critical reader was by reading aloud. I stayed focused and knew what I was reading. Using digital tools. One of my favorite tools I used this semester to enhance my reading skills was using Blogger on Google. For our free reading periods on Mondays, which I read To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, we would use Blogger to post what we found as critical readers. We analyzed the title, setting, direct and indirect characterization, rhetorical devices, and to wrap it up, we gave our own book review. Using the digital tool Blogger on Google has helped me really focus on my book and realize what I'm actually learning. Making connection. I've made a huge connection and approached some challenges when I read A Worn Path. In fact, this was my favorite short story I read this semester because it reminded me of a part of my life. The story is about an old black southern woman and her journey through a worn path. In this story, as you read, you can see that the old woman has a southern accent. It reminded me of my grandparents, who are from Louisiana and Chicago. When they speak, they pronounce words differently and don't use complete sentences, just like the woman in the story. Because the story had some old Southern references, it was challenging to read. Here I be, she says, which specifically reminds me of my grandfather, who always says, How you be, darlin', when he greets me. By making this connection, it allowed me to understand the language that was being used. I absolutely loved this story. Challenges. A challenge that I truly had to face was trying to comprehend the story, The Handsomest Drowned Man in the World. This story was challenging because the plot was hard to follow. I didn't really understand the meaning of the story and why this handsome drowned man was so significant. Throughout the story, these villagers are in awe of a dead man. They don't know who he is or where he came from, and yet he's so important to them that they give him a name, Esteban, which means crown and victory. None of the story really made sense until the end, when I realized that Esteban was important because he brought life back into this village, is when everything came together and the story made sense. The story was a challenge, but in the end, the message couldn't have been clearer. Most memorable experience. My most memorable experience as a critical reader was actually learning to become one. I personally do not like to read. Most people would tell me it's because I haven't found the right book. But that wasn't it. I self examined myself as a reader and found that I did not enjoy to read because when I read, I never really applied it to my own life. With the skills of a critical reader that I have equipped, I was able to connect to the stories to something that interests me. For example, when I read the story Two Kinds, I made a connection from a movie I saw called The Karate Kid. In this movie, the young Asian girl was forced by her parents to play her violin 24/7 to prepare for her audition. Just like the book, where Jing Mi was forced by her mother to play the piano for her talent show. By making connections and reading on a deeper level, I have found reading to be enjoyable now, and that is why learning to become a critical reader was my most memorable experience. Aha moment. After reading the story Two Kinds, I encountered my aha moment. I had an aha moment when I realized that Jing Mi and I were very much alike. Growing up, my father would always tell me that I would be a doctor or singer. He always told me that in order to be a singer, I have to sing, 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 and in order to be a doctor, I have to study, study, study. Because this was instilled in me since I was 4, all I did was sing and get good grades. I sang in my church choir, school choir, and a select ensemble. Although I didn't get the choice to sing or study when I was younger, it didn't stop me from doing it. I love to sing and get good grades, and until this day, I always will. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Unlike Jing Mi, who didn't want to be the pianist her mother wanted her to be, she never tried. My true aha moment was realizing that I could have been in Jing Mi's shoes and hated my father for forcing me to do things I may not wanted to do. Instead, I found out who I really am as a person.